It's episode number 3 of Mind Your Own Business for Authors, and I'm your host, Joe C.R.E.A.M. Cash rules everything around me, dollar bill, yo. This episode's about cash flow. Craig and I are going to break it down for you. We're going to talk about cash flow for emerging authors and how to get things right for your launch, as well as we're going to dig into how to find the right growth rate and controlling your cash as your business grows. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody, it's Joe C.R.E.A.M. here in Chicago, and
Craig Martelle coming to you live from the South Arctic.
All right. And did I see that your snow had melted?
Oh, yeah. It was almost 50 degrees 2 days ago. It was when I took Phyllis for her walk this morning, it was 32. So it was right at freezing, so no muddy paws. Everything has melted. We're good. Starting tomorrow, our highs will be below freezing, and probably from here on out.
Yeah, because we got your snow. Came last night.
We got nothing, man. How much you got on the ground?
It's half inch. It's sloppy too. It won't last. Yeah. I won't even get the shovel out for this one.
All right, good call.
And it's not the time of year where it could in 4 hours freeze solid and then be ice for the next 6 months. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. It's good up here that it's dry right now because when temperatures now nosedive, we don't have that layer of ice on the ground, which every other year we get a nice layer of ice right before the hard freeze, and then you drive on ice for the next 6 months.
That's awesome. Yeah. We had that last winter.
Yeah, people learn how to drive on it. That's most of them.
So we were going to chat. We actually were, when we were wrapping up last week, we couldn't help ourselves. We got into cash flow, and we promised we were going to talk about it this week. And so I thought we'd rolling up into the Vegas conference, being the business focus that I have there. This is certainly stuff I've been doing a lot of research on and always talk about, but this is something that you're also pretty passionate about. So I thought we kind of revisit this. It's been a while. I was looking at the videos, and it's been it's almost been 2 years.
Holy cow. Yeah. How about that? Out of control.
Wow. Yeah.
But cash flow, give us a definition. Let's start off on an even, everybody starting off on the same page. Sure.
So when we're talking about cash flow, let me first off, what we're not talking about is profit, right? So when you talk about business basics, you have your income less your expenses equals profit, right? That doesn't mean that's actual cash. And the best example of that is for authors is this month you have whatever your sales may be on Amazon. Let's say it's $10,000 in book sales. That's not cash, right? That's your $10,000 in revenue. And let's say to get that in this month, you had $5,000 in expenses. So you have $5,000 in profit. That's still not cash. You don't see that cash until 2 months later when it hits your account. So that's how you would account for cash flow. It's the cash that you actually have coming in and the cash that you have going out. How was that?
That's good. And real life examples. July was a down month for me, like 50% of what I made in June. And then I made even more than that in August, right? But July, August, end of September, right? Mm-hmm. So I was looking at, plane tickets for next year. I buy my tickets way, way in advance. And I'm like, cool, let me get into the next cycle because my August cash is good, September, end of October. So the credit card bill, my miles bill, because I always pay it off every time. I don't carry any credit. And let me do that. Well, I missed. I thought I paid into the new credit card cycle, which then gives me 30 additional days, or it gives me about 50 days actually before I have to pay it. And I thought I got it in the new cycle, and I didn't. So I had to pay that out of the July reduced cash when it hit, and that was unpleasant to say the least, because it turned me upside down for that one moment in time. And then as additional Vegas expenses popped up, because you know what, you pay those right now, And then the potential, I'm like, okay, I'll be fine in November. But right now, the cash took a dip, and all of a sudden, holy crap. So cash flow is king. And that's, I misguesstimated by 2 days because I'm like, oh, let me buy those tickets right now. My tickets to SPS in London. And I missed it by 2 days and did a self-boning.
Well, and that's a good point is it's, there's the example I gave was kind of like a monthly kind of bigger picture, but cash flow gets really granular, right? So for authors, you get paid on the 28th of the month for most of us. The big check is coming, say, from Amazon, and it hits on your account on the 28th. You may have some other stuff that's trickling in, but you kind of have these, singular cash events where all the money comes in. And then you probably have expenses, the stuff you have to pay out, that are happening over a period of time, right? So, if it's subscription fees for your email service provider, or this month you're putting books out, and you need covers, whatever that might be, you have to, understand that, okay, I've got this slug of money. This cash has to last how long to get to that next point? Because whenever you get in a position where you're short of cash, it's going to impact the business.
Yeah, and that's what is your slush fund? Some people call it a slush fund. Some people call it the war chest. Other people will call it the I forget the term, but it's a ready available cash. And my bottom line is I need to have at least $5,000 available at any point in time in case a narrated book pops up. Hey, you got this book done early. Here's 2 covers. I'm waiting on 3 covers. That's $1,000. Oh, sorry, not 3. I meant 6. That's $2,000. I'm waiting on a narration invoice. I'm waiting on, and that could roll into the next. Okay, so that $5,000, cool. So anything above that, that's my outside of my war chest, is then goes to other cash issues. So having cash on hand is king. When I first started, I started writing full-time in 2015. 2016, I was going to start my publishing journey, and I had enough cash set aside to handle a whole year of expenses and stuff, which it was just covers and editing back then. I didn't have narrators. I didn't have a lot. I didn't have the high-end covers. I didn't have a lot of other stuff, right? And I had no expenses because of I wasn't traveling to any shows. I wasn't doing anything ancillary to hanging out in Alaska and writing. And then now the cash needs are rather significant because of so much production. When I went to collaborators, about half of those were work for hire, which are, pay by the word. So when they turn in a manuscript, you have to pay them. And I pay within 1 or 2 days of the accrual when that bill is due. I don't delay anything. Hey, you have 30-day terms. I mean, a lot of companies, they run on 30-day terms. I just pay within 30 days, and I pay immediately because people did the work. They deserve the money, and that's my personal attitude toward running a business. But this year I had significant expenses in the first 6 months because I had covers, editing, by the way, paying by the word too. So the cash flow out was rather substantial, and a couple of those series didn't hit well. So I was taking the successful series. It was the traditional publishing model of using the successful
the winners to pay for the dogs
to pay for the ones that weren't. Yeah. And so I went through all that, and halfway through the year, I'm looking at, holy crap, this is a revenue neutral effort. Well, and also I donate a lot of money. I give a lot of money to people. I support a lot of different causes, right? I had one author pass away this year. And so that was like $20,000 that I just here have this, survive and do better and live till the next day. But going into the second half of the year, I drew down those cash flow challenges. And now all of a sudden, hey, we're okay, except for July. July was such a bad month from a revenue perspective. And so August, what did I do? I upped my ad spend. So I'm using June revenue to pay August bills, and hey, not bad because August numbers went way up. September numbers went way, way up. October numbers are with two earning days left in this month. October is already my second highest month ever.
Good.
September was my highest month. So it's all good, especially now because now my costs are way low. So the second half of the year is really going to be a home run.
Well, you mentioned that when you started, you had some money set aside to kind of get through your first year. And I think that not everyone's circumstances are like yours. Some folks are, they really want to make this thing happen, but they're trying to do it with the money that that they have in their own savings to invest, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we should kind of talk through that for some folks, and that, that isn't a unique situation. Like anybody that invests, first off, you have to think about yourself from the investor's perspective. Like you're investing in this new business. You're no different than a venture capitalist that invested in any kind of new venture. Like their main objective is they want to put in a certain amount of money. They're hoping and praying that that's the last money that has to go in, and they're expecting money back for that, right? The worst thing that can happen is what typically happens, and anybody that's been involved in startups is like you have a plan and you put money in, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And especially with books being so, I don't know, volatile is the right word, but like you're not going to know if your books are going to succeed until they get in the market.
That's right.
And the reality is that it usually takes several books to kind of find your voice and find your audience. So you have to plan to have the money to get through that. Like if the plan is, let's say, to write 3 books, do you have the money saved up to do all that, figuring you never make a penny on those books? And if you don't, what's the plan? Like, how are you going to, you have to have a plan to get that money. You can't hope to do it on credit cards, or the first book is going to pay for the second book.
But you can bootstrap, and that's Barry Hutchinson had a great presentation in 20 Books London. Mm-hmm. And so look for that on YouTube and watch his presentation. You'll be pleased because his cash flow he didn't spend any money out of his pocket through his first 3-4 books, whatever. And he still didn't. He has spent no money out of his pocket. He's only used money that he's earned from the business. Mm-hmm. Now, he did his covers himself, so he taught himself how to do covers. They were genre appropriate for his particular genre. They're kind of crazy, but that's, it's a Monty Python style humor. Mm-hmm. And in editing, worked deals to get his stuff edited and put them out there. Mm. So the thing as far as businesses, having been involved just like you with, but not to your degree, in new businesses, there's such a low cost of entry to being a self-published author, because all you really need to do is invest time. Time to write the story, time to get the story edited, and then you can trade services. Hey, I will proofread 5 of your books if you can proofread mine and get it up to a standard of not offending readers with typos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And your cover, you could buy pre-made covers. Such a low cost of entry, especially when you're talking like 3 books, the first 3, you get that third one done. Now you can start paying for advertising. And previously you could just do newsletter swaps. You could do shares. You could do social media stuff, which doesn't cost anything. And that's it's a very, very low cost of entry to see if you have a viable product, which is what venture capitalists do and entrepreneurs. I have this idea. Well, for authors, the idea is a book. For small businesses, the idea is I'm really good with my hands. I can plumb. I'm going to open a plumbing business. Mm-hmm. Okay, you get your licenses, you do some stuff, and then you throw yourself out there and say, hey, I can plumb. And away you go. Yeah,
and it's a real good point. I completely agree that the the costs to get into the game are so low. And if you are in a position where you can do, like I know there's some authors that do their covers and they do amazing covers, right? That's something they like to do. But if that's not your thing, like you say, there's ways to do it, right? And you, as the person starting this business, you have to decide how you're going to do it, right? There's, for example, you can say, well, at this point for this series, based on where I am, the money I can put into it, all I can do is I can do these pre-made covers. And there's some amazing pre-made cover people out there, right? There's some great artists that I know that kind of do those to help authors, right? They make sure that they're cheaper because their whole idea is the more authors they get in the game that succeed will be buying the $800 covers, right?
Yeah.
Or if you are like, hey, listen, I'm going into the genre and I want to come in at this kind of level of quality and I want to pay whatever it is a cover and I want to hire these type of editors. The point is just plan it out, right? And if the number comes up and let's say it's $3,000, then, do what you have to do to get the $3,000 in place. And, the reality is it's probably something you could save up over the same time that you're writing the books, right? Like if you're not writing, the book's never going to get done, right? No matter, even if you buy a cover. So
you have no product to then earn revenue on.
Yeah. And that's why I created that author capital planner, and I'll put the link in the notes. But I have so many people that are like, "Well, I don't even have a plan," and it's like, well, if you can't go in and fill out, what your covers are going to cost, and just understand what that lump number is going to be. And I don't have. I'm just like you. I know there's people that have done it for nothing, and there's people that are like, I spent $3,000 on a cover, and it's like, you don't really have to do that.
Yeah, that's.
But when then you hear their thing, it's like, oh well, I have this particular artist, and their covers are drawn, for me, and it's part of the series, and it's like part of their brand. Then that makes sense, right? And they're at a point that they can do that. But understanding that number, right? Yep. And, with that tool, I think the other thing that I hope that it helps people see is that it may take a little bit longer than you think.
Yeah. Well, and then that 2-day delay or 2-month delay, 30 to 60 to 90 days. It all depends on when that money accrues. So you have a full month. Well, it's 2 months from the end of that month that you're actually going to see cash. So this is it's important to understand when is the income going to hit and when is the money going to go out. Mm-hmm. Like I use my credit card for my advert for Facebook ads. Of course, I mean they ask for the credit card, and so that buys me a certain amount of time. 30 to 50 days of time for when I have to pay. So actually it's not bad. And I maintain that petty cash is the term I was looking for earlier. I maintain petty cash enough that I can pay for all of that. And then we just refill the well come payday, 20 days, 10 days later. So keeping that minimum for me, it's higher than like normal people, but I keep a macro view. I don't dig into the granularity of, okay, I know I exactly have 3 covers that I'm going to be buying this month, and here's this. I don't know, 3 to 7, maybe 10. I don't know. I'm going to edit X amount of words mostly. And so this is, and that's why I maintain a higher petty cash, which is okay. Because I can do that, but if you can't, then you just have to maintain that granularity on your expenses. You need to understand that money earned 2 months ago, you pay your expenses this month. So you have to keep track. And if you're bad with numbers, then you have to keep track even more because you don't want any surprises. Because the worst thing that can happen is a great cover artist working on the 3rd book in your series says, hey, I've got it ready. And you're like, oh my God, I'm out of money. I can't pay you right now, but can I have the cover? And the cover artists are like, I need this. This is my job.
Yeah,
I did this for you. And so that's a difference. They get paid now as opposed to you getting paid as an author sometime down the road.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest month, I have books with Trad Pub. My biggest month ever with Trad, with my one series, I was paid promptly 8 months after that big month. Now, I went out and bought a truck with that royalty, so it was way cool, but 8 months.
Yeah.
Because that money fell into a new quarter, and they pay the following quarter, so it was 8 months. And that's, so their cash flow, they're not paying out. They're holding it for a long, long time before they have to then pay out. Also because of the Trad Pub model, because of returns.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was, even though we didn't actually get in bookstores until a year after it was published. So they maintain that Trad Pub model based on, hey, if they return your paperback, but we don't have any paperbacks published, but this is our model. So they're holding my ebook cash for fucking 6 months before they paid me. But it's a standard contract.
Yeah,
it's the model. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I signed up. I signed the contract. I knew that.
Well, that gets to, I wrote a blog piece for the Draft to Digital guys called the Launch Trough, and it was about understanding this whole cash flow piece. And from them, one of the biggest things that they get calls about is like, well, where's my money? Well, it's like in that model, it's different, right? Because they pay a period after they get paid by whoever it is, right? And if they're aggregating that, they got money coming in at all different times.
Yes.
And all that stuff's in the fine print, but people never read the fine print. But if you're using some of these different models, understand the payment terms and how they're set up. This going back in time, one of my businesses, our biggest customer was General Electric. And their terms were, you got paid in 90 days. Right? Like that was it. Like that was their standard terms and conditions. If you wanted anything different, then too bad, right? Because there was nobody in there that could adjust that.
Yeah.
Now
you really you couldn't negotiate that down.
Yeah. Now one thing happened is with our business, we had this big contract where we did negotiate better terms.
Okay.
We got we when I say we negotiated better terms, we had the 90-day terms. They switched to 120 days. They moved everybody to 120 days. So we got swept up in that, and it was like, hey, we have to go back, and every pay cycle we had somebody chasing money down with them because this was big money, right? And they're moving billions of dollars around all the time. So understand your partner's terms and conditions, right? Like we all are really accepting of the fact that Amazon's terms are this 60 days, right?
Yeah.
But then if you use somebody else in there as an aggregator, or you're working with some of the other independent publishers that are out there, understand how they pay. Like I know guys like you pay right away. As soon as you get the money, you're kick it out within a week. But understand your terms.
I actually pay my my co-authors a month ahead because I so hate waiting on money. And I understand what the terms are, but because I just paid yesterday through the end of October. So that's earnings on estimated KENP rates and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I know we're going to earn money next month. So if it's down, we're still going to cover that. But still, I'm not going to get that money for it's October, so end of December. Yeah. And I paid them because I don't want them waiting for money.
Mm. The other thing you touched on, and we talked a little bit about in the beginning stage, is understanding that launch trough. I think one thing for new authors, if you don't have an understanding of how quickly your books pay back, everybody goes through this cycle, right? You have no idea, are your book going to pay back in 20 minutes or 20 months, right?
Yep. Payback, also earn out. These are terms we use to say, here's what I spent on the book. When I make exactly that amount. So now everything beyond that goes into the profitability minus ads.
Mm-hmm.
So it's earnout or is what you're talking about there.
Yeah. So like, for example, and we'll take ads out of the equation just to keep the math simple. But if you you spent $500 on a book cover, you spent $500 on editing, you're $1,000 in the hole. And depending on how long it takes you to actually get published, let's just say, for example, it's 2 months. So you're $1,000 in the hole. Now your book launches. And let's say on the first day you have $1,000 in sales. You still have 2 months before that money hits the bank and you're just at even. So that would be the trough, right? The depth would be $1,000. The duration would be 4 months, right?
Nice. Good explanation.
So knowing that once you kind of have put books out, you understand like, oh, I get paid back in the first day. I know a lot of people do that. Or it's like I get paid back in 3 days or 3 weeks. But one thing to keep in mind, if you're a new author, you're just launching, you're going to make 60% of your money most likely in the first 3 months, right? So if you don't get your payoff and break even in your first 3 months of your revenues, God knows how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and then there are other things to do, and I put that in my book, Pricing Strategies, which comes out tomorrow, as I up the. And that's also part of Pricing Strategies and Cash Flow, is I had it set for November 9th release out of pre-order, and I've got a couple hundred pre-orders on it, but just to give me enough time because I wasn't sure I was going to have it written, edited, and reviewed before then. But I got it all done, so I release it tomorrow, so I get all that pre-order money tomorrow. So 60 days, end of December, I will get paid. And then I've got all of November to earn page reads to compete for the bonus. This one won't because it's a shorter book, but just understand that I did that for cash flow purposes. Let's get that money now. It might be only $450, but it's end of December as opposed to end of January.
Yeah. Well, and all that stuff helps. 30 days is something that we were talking about before, is that we get that money back. Once we get that cash in here, the other part of cash flow is this cash flow cycle is, so we have this, think about it this way, what's called working capital. You're going to always have this chunk of money that's going to be in your business working for you. Yeah. In your case, it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. It always gets bigger. It should get bigger, right? Now you can optimize that, right, by some of the tactics we're talking about here, where you get the money sooner so that you can deploy it faster, right? Because the whole idea is you send that money out on the street and it goes out and finds more money and brings it back.
Yeah.
But understand it's always going to go up.
I'd lost my track of what point I was trying to make. You said earn out within 90 days, the first quarter. I've got a series that I finished all 9 books. I finished the first 6 books 3 years ago, right? And then did 3 more books a little over a year and a half ago, just because I promised my readers, and I had the covers for them, and I had nice Tom Edwards covers that I paid like $700 each for. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to use these damn things, and wrote the last 3 books. Well, so those last 3, just because of the big delay, did okay, but they didn't earn out, right? They never earned enough to offset that. But what I did is I consolidated all 9 books into a single collection, and that has been carrying the lion's share of my profitability for the last 3 months. That single collection, it's just under 3,000 KENP, which is the max you can get paid. I priced it at $4.99, so it's if I sell a copy, I get reasonable money. If somebody reads it, I get like $13.50. So that's more than a 1 month subscription that I can get payback from Amazon. So that one there, some of the books didn't earn out, but now they have all well earned out because of just this one collection. So your books always have value. But from a cash flow perspective, I would have never said, well, geez, I better wait 3 years before I can start making some real money on this series. I mean, nobody says that. They determine in those first 3 months, this is a good series or not.
We had a little interruption there here with the power, but we're back, and we'll kind of wrap up before it might happen again.
Yeah, yeah.
So what we kind of hit on, kind of early stage cash flow management. And it's really kind of at the launch book level. And then we were really talking about as you scale your business up and understanding working capital and the cash flow cycles. So did you have anything you wanted to add there? And
the thing is, you need to keep track. If you don't keep track, then you need to have a lot of money in a working capital file, a petty cash, a war chest, so you can dip into it as you need to as things pop up. So just understand what's going to cost you money now, how you can flow that, because I have a credit card where I earn miles. If I'm going to spend the money, I might as well earn some miles and get some travel, because I do travel enough. And then when that bill hits, so you have to pay it. So my advertising is anywhere from 20 to 50 days when I need to pay it, and not right now. And that's Facebook ads.
Well, and I would
just understand, and when you get your revenue, and especially as you have multiple revenue streams, when do you get your Audible revenue? When do you get your other revenue? When do you get your D2D revenue? When do you get Amazon? Amazon hits, could be the 28th, could be the 1st. I mean, sometimes it just depends where that weekend falls.
Well, the one thing I would add is, in your case, you've always been somebody that enjoys tracking this stuff, and you've got your super spreadsheet. You do this. If you're not that kind of person and you haven't done it, understand that this gets a lot of people in trouble, right? Because
did you pay your taxes?
Yeah. Well, the other one that I've seen a lot lately is people that are when they come to me and work with me, a lot of times why they're doing it is their success is building on itself. And they get to a point where suddenly they're wondering where all the money went, right? And with my background, we've scaled up some pretty big businesses, and I've never found a way other than basically building a model, figuring out when the cash would run out, and then backing down, right? Like
so you never run out.
So you never run out, right? Yep. That's how you find the right growth rate for the business. Is like, okay, when is it that there's this big chunk of money, cash that's missing to keep going in that cycle, and then you have to pull it back to get that petty cash reserve. So it's not an easy thing like you can just go in and figure out.
No.
So if you are scaling up and you're not looking at this stuff, you really need to ask for some help and to start tracking this stuff, because what will happen is your success will get the best of you. You'll be like, what happened to the petty cash drawer? It's empty. It's like, well, you put all that money out on the street and it's not come back yet.
Yeah.
And while it's out there, you got bills to pay. Sorry, honey.
Yeah. And that's not a position you want to put yourself in, where you're leveraging then, as in you're promising people, hey, I'll write you a story in the future for some money now. And sometimes that's okay, because ghostwriters, this is how they make their money, because they get paid now for their story, but then they have no future rights. So it's a trade-off, and it goes to cash flow, and it's okay. I mean, ghostwriters can make a very, very good living jamming the words now, but having no real ownership of those words, besides the fact that they're learning and getting better at writing every day. Your dog just ran by. I love your dog.
Bloody.
So it's all part of as the business mindset, and it's okay. Everything is okay as long as you manage it. If you measure it, you can manage it. And this comes down to the money. You've got to measure when it goes out, when it comes in, and make sure that you're not upside down at any point in time. Upside down as in you go below what you have available. Yeah. And that's it's you can spend more than you make. It's okay as long as you've got it set aside. You can run at a deficit until you are running in the positive.
Absolutely. And where I see people end up when they do get themselves jammed up, they either don't pay the taxes, or they don't pay themselves, right? Like and so like those are two things that we don't want to have you in that situation, and they're preventable if you do a little bit of planning.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's good for this week. We'll schedule another one of these, and I can see my signal's getting unstable, so we better wrap this up soon.
Yeah. I don't think we'll do one before the show. We'll catch up after Vegas, baby.
Yeah. All right. See you there. Bye-bye.